Slocan Lake, guys. Beautiful watercolor, beautiful mountains. It's absolutely gorgeous. Okay guys, so you can see the trail smelter. We're in the morning here in trail. So we're gonna head left, I believe. So we don't want to go to Salmo and Weimer, not this time. So this is trail, guys. Trail Creek Landing, what it was named before, a big sternwheeler landing, smelting all the ore coming out of Rosslyn, all the OK, IXL, and Midnight mine ore that came out of Rosslyn. OK Mountain came down here and got smelted. There's a famous story of the guys getting off shift from the smelter and taking chunks of the ore from the IXL and the Midnight and the OK, which makes people believe, which is why the ore count was lower than it used to be. Like, because that ore was super rich, and people have postulated that it was actually richer than it said, but due to, you know, miners taking stuff when they went off shift, it diluted the total count of the ore, right? You can see the power plant as well as the sulfur pipeline that takes the off-gas sulfur from the sulfide ores of the lead and zinc smelter and puts them in the fertilizer plant in Warfield, which then converts all that sulfur into fertilizer. You can see the fertilizer plant right there. We got the train tracks too going down to the States, as well as hitting the main line of the Crow's Nest Pass and going upwards towards Radium, Invermere, Golden. You can see the smelter. That's the electrolytic refining tanks. All these stacks here, refining tanks for zinc. The lead section of the smelter is in a different area, so they can't quite show you that because it's lead and it's not healthy for you. This is the entrance to where you go. It shows you the price of zinc. This is fun, guys. You can do the tour. There's no pictures or cameras allowed, and security's pretty high, but it makes sense. It is the world's largest fully integrated lead and zinc smelter, so there's going to be some things to it. But yeah, guys, that's trail. That's kind of trail's pride and joy in this day and age, is the smelter. It really always has been. It's not known per se for its ore. You know, you don't come to trail to mine, but you come to trail to process ore. Grand Forks is similar, although Grand Forks does have more mines around it. Trail really is a smelter town. And being on the Columbia River, it had ease of access for sternwheelers, transportation, obviously before the bridges got built. After the bridges got built, well, a little bit harder, but at that point we have roads, and roads were a huge part of getting rid of trains. There's a huge part of that. We're just heading up to Castlegar now, which is kind of the beginning of the Columbia and Western Railway, KVR. It did have a spur that came down here, but the true Columbia and Western Railway, guys, starts in Castlegar. And then there's more railways that continue on. But we're going to go into the Silvery Slocan today, and we're going to look at the Kootenay-Columbia Railway. The rail line from Slocan Lake down to the junction at Crescent. Hey guys, we're just about to turn on to the 6 here. We've been kind of going parallel with it. Slocan, New Denver, and a cusp. We're about to enter the Silvery Slocan, guys. So the 6 takes you back to the Okanagan through Cherryville, and you pop out in Vernon. So we're gonna go there. It should be pretty nice. But we got a few stops along the way here. We're now into the Silvery Slocan. We're following the old Kootenay-Columbia Railway, which built a spur line from this location up to Slocan City now. Or Slocan City is what it used to be called. It's just called Slocan now. But Slocan City, guys, was a pretty big town. It's a main terminus for rail transport and sternwheelers for everybody going into the Silvery Slocan, which would have been Sandon, Three Forks, and Cody. That whole area, like the highly rich silver deposits, rich galena ore, super rich silver deposits, 1,000 ounces to the ton in some cases, which for silver is very, very, very good ore. Even though the price of silver is lower than gold substantially, even at those kind of purity levels, guys, 1,000 ounces to the ton, moneymaker, man, huge moneymaker. So we're just entered the Crescent Valley. Nakusp is kind of the top of the area of note. The Nikusp and Slocan Railway is another railway of note. That came right out of Sandon, ultimately terminated in Nikusp, and then from Nikusp, they would send the ore up to the smelter in Revelstoke. The smelter in Revelstoke never panned out. Once upon a time, Revelstoke had a smelter. Keeping a smelting operation going is a tricky thing with ore supply and, you know, power required. Alrighty guys, so here we are, Lemon Creek, just before Slocan City, now Slocan. This is an interesting creek, some silver and gold prospects further up Lemon Creek. Sasquatch Lake as well is another good one. Some prospectors went missing around here back in the 1800s. A few prospectors went up Lemon Creek, prospect for gold and silver, and they were never heard from again. You be the judge of what you think was responsible for that, but this is Lemon Creek. It's under the bridge here. Nothing too crazy's come out of here, but this is Lemon Creek. The water's super clear here too. And then this whole time we've been driving, we've been following the rail grade, the Columbia Kootenai Railway in the Slocan Valley. You can see there's a little campground here, Lemon Creek rest area. Okay guys, so we're just driving up to Slocan City, now Slocan. Slocan City at one point was a huge town because there's two routes to get to the Silvery Slocan, otherwise known as Sandon, in that whole region. There's Caslow side, which is steering wheelers up Kootenai Lake, and then once you reach Caslow, you get on the K&S Railway, Caslow-Slocan Railway, which takes you into Sandon, and that takes you to the Silvery Slocan. The second route, which is not as well talked about, but is also just as relevant, is this route. It all depends on where you're leaving, right? Revelstoke being the main town up in the north with the smelter, and down here would be Roslyn, Trail, Nelson would be kind of your big three towns of note back in those days. And so the Slocan Valley Rail Trail, which is just off the side of the highway here, that is from the old Kootenai Columbia Railway. There was a spur built. Around 1896, silver was discovered. Huge, rich deposits of silver were discovered in and around Sandon. Sometime before that as well, but it's usually the big rush always takes a while. You can see Slocan Valley Rail Trail. So they built a spur line off the Kootenai Columbia Railway up to the bottom of Slocan Lake, which is where Slocan City is. Then from there, once you took the train up from Castlegar to Slocan City, you would hop on a stern wheeler, and that stern wheeler would take you to the town of Silverton, which is in the middle of Slocan Lake. And Silverton's a really fascinating area. So we're gonna go check Silverton out. Idaho Peak, or Idaho Mountain, which is kind of the mountain that butts up against Silverton, as well as the mountain that butts up against Sandon. That was source of all the mines. A lot of the big mines there, a lot of the big silver mines were on Idaho Peak. So Silverton today is a tiny little settlement of about a few hundred people. It's got a cafe, a small museum, and it was just a mining community, a silver mining community that was accessible by sternwheeler. Now at the top of the lake, you've got New Denver. And New Denver used to be called El Dorado City, which means gold, but it's weird because there is always gold in silver ores, even in the Kootenai ore. They were pulling gold out of here, but that's not what it was about. It was about silver mining. And any of you Americans, you know anything Denver, Colorado, that was a silver country. Colorado had a lot of silver rushes, right? So Denver was a big silver area. Calling a silver mining community El Dorado City is kind of a misnomer a little bit. It doesn't really make too much sense because it's not El Dorado City. It's more like the Silver City. So basically what happened was they changed the name of El Dorado City to New Denver, thinking that because of the setting, you know, similar kind of mountains to Denver, Colorado, that it was like Denver, Colorado. And New Denver today is also quite a small place. None of these places that we're about to go to are very big. It's much more bushy. But what happened from New Denver was New Denver, like Caslow, became the terminus. So you've got the Goat Range, which is the mountain range that we're driving around. On the west side, you've got New Denver. On the east side, you've got Caslow. And then you've got the Lardo and Halcyon Hot Springs, Halfway Hot Springs, all that stuff further north on either side of the Goat Range. New Denver had a big railway running through it called the NNS Railway, which is the Nikusp and Slocan Railway. And both the NNS and the KNS terminated in Sandon, where ore was shipped on the respective trains and out. So from the K&S Railway, it would go from Sandon to Caslow, and then get put on a stern wheeler in Caslow and sent to the Pilot Bay smelter or the smelter in Nelson, because Nelson also had a smelter back in the day. New Denver route, the NNS Railway, the ore would get shipped out of Sandon past Three Forks area, right? Three Forks is that famous mining area we talked a little bit about. And then through New Denver up to Roseberry, which is kind of in between New Denver and Nicusk. And then once at Roseberry, it would get connected to the rail line and from the stern wheeler, and then that silver would get shipped up to Revelstoke, the smelter in Revelstoke, and that was through a series of railways, the NNS Railway, as well as the Arrow Lakes stern wheeler, Upper Arrow Lake. And you'll notice when you look at the lower part of Upper Arrow Lake, there's nothing there. There's no settlements, there's no roads, there's no towns. And why is this? Well, it's because there was no ore found. There was no reason for people to settle. People only settle in regions that give them a reason to. Yeah, there's lumber and, fishing and all kinds of other resources, but those resources are abundant all over British Columbia. We're very lucky that way. What really made these places stick out was that they were mining places. There was a reason for people to be here, like having a job. You're not going to move to a city unless you've got work. Necessitates the whole reason for you to move there. It's the same thing with mining. If a mine opened up, or a series of mines opened up, then that meant there was room for a town. The route that we're taking right now, that is the route that people would have taken from Castlegar to get to the Silvery Slocan through Slocan City. So you can see Nicusk was 103, New Denver's 56, and Slocan's 30. We're on the other side of the Silvery Slocan. The Silvery Slocan itself is these mountains on the right, and Sandon. Sandon was the city of the Silvery Slocan. And then you've got Cody, which is where the concentrator was. That's a small, tiny ghost town we haven't gone to yet. We will do that at some point. Cody had a spur built from Sandon to go get the ore from Cody and then ship it out. But you basically have two railways converging in Sandon. The NNS, the Nicusk and Slocan Railway, which we'll go see the remnants of in Nicusk, as well as the KNS, Caslow and Slocan Railway. And then to get here, you have the Kootenay-Columbia Railway or Columbia-Kootenay Railway, whichever way you want to say it, which takes you from Castlegar up this valley that we've been traveling. We've literally been traveling along the whole time I've been talking here. We've been traveling along this rail line the whole time. And then it ends at Slocan City. And then from Slocan City, you would take a stern wheeler up to Silverton, and you could go mining. If some guys had claims in Silverton and around the area, they'd go mining up on the slopes. Or you continue on to New Denver, and then you'd catch the train from New Denver into the heart of the Silvery Slocan itself. And super high-grade silver deposits here. Crazy, crazy high-grade silver. Like I said, 1,000 ounces to the ton, that's rich. Even by silver standards, because, obviously the price is much smaller. That is still very, very rich and can make you a lot of money. The biggest problem with most of this stuff is there's a lot of sulfides in silver, a lot of crap. And separating out the lead, the zinc, and the silver from galena ore can be quite difficult at times, which is why you see the theme of the smelter. We have the Revelstoke smelter, the Pilot Bay smelter, the Nelson smelter, the Trail smelter, the Grand Forks smelter. When you have sulfide ores, they need a lot of refinement. And even like what the Trail smelter said, as well as the Grand Forks smelter, they get a distillate, right? Like a concentrated form, but that's still polluted. Like it's still not what you would call pure metal that you can sell and market. So even the stuff from the smelter has to get further refined. And a lot of that was done down in the States. The United States has always had more abilities for hard rock mining. There were hard rock prospectors. The United States of America, the guys that came up from there, they actually brought with them a lot of hard rock prospecting knowledge that the British didn't have as much. And so the British started seeing these guys like hard rock mining, and then they realized, oh, it's just like placer mining, but slightly different. But hard rock always comes down to two things: is where is the ore? How are you going to transport it? Because unlike placer gold, you can't just pick up a ton of rocks and walk it through the bush. If you are going to do that, you're severely limited by the quantity of ore you can take. And then the second and third thing is, what type of ore is it, in the sense of how many sulfides and other crap is in it, as well as where's the nearest smelter and how extensively do we have to smelt and treat this ore before it becomes gold or silver or metal that you would actually want to sell someone. Selling somebody a bunch of rocks is never going to go down well, because they could also just go out there and get the rocks themselves. It's what makes a mining operation tick is the fact that you have the location, you have the transportation, you have the ability to treat and then also sell the ore. We're coming to the end of the Slocan Valley Rail Trail, Columbia Kootenay Railway spur, guys. Slocan Valley Rail Trail. You've seen signs. We've seen signs for it the whole time. The Valhalla Mountains, guys, on the side. Slocan. Welcome to Slocan. So this is Slocan, guys. This is the old park. Quiet little bedroom community, guys. Really small, tiny little town. Okay, so we're just downtown Slocan. Used to be called Slocan City, but as you guys can see, clearly not a city. So we're just gonna go down to the rail trail end, guys, like where the railway would have terminated, and then you would have had to catch the stern wheelers. Almost 4,000 people here at one point when things were getting going and everybody was heading off. There's one hotel, or maybe two hotels, a little cafe that's not open too late. But this is Slocan. We're just going down by the water. That's the Valhalla Mountains on the far side there. Big obstacle trying to get through that when you're prospecting. There's the grocery store. This is kind of the cool big hotel in town. The Slocan City Hotel. It's a really cool building. The rooms are actually really nice, but it's very small. It's got a small town vibe to it. There's no really restaurant here. There's no restaurants here, period. So you have to get takeout and stuff, or just cook in the room. Yeah. This is where it would have ended, right? Let's see if I can find. Oh, I see Pile. It's the old dock.
Just parked up.
No, down there. Oh, yeah. That's where I want to go.
Okay.
Just park here. Let's basically go over here, see if there's any data. Oh, nice. They have. Okay, good. Something. Slocan Lake is large enough that boats and ships have always been important here. The SS Slocan, hand-painted photo. Launched in 1897, the Slocan handled freight and passengers and towed barges until 1928. She was rebuilt in Rosebery in 1905 and was lengthened at that time. Her last run coincided with the opening of the highway from Slocan to Silverton. See, I told you. The SS Rosebery served on Slocan Lake from 1928 to 1956. Stripped of her machinery in Slocan, a later attempt to preserve her hull in New Denver was unsuccessful. Tugs became increasingly important on Slocan Lake. The 50-foot diesel-powered steel tug, the Iris G, could run up the lake and switch from Slocan to Rosebery in 2 hours and 20 minutes with 2 barges. The SS William Hunter, the first steamship on Slocan Lake, steamed from 1892 to 1900 under Master George Estabrook. After serving the CPR in booming lakeside communities, she was scrapped in 1903 and sunk off the Slocan Wharf. Since the pioneer days, Slocan has been the site of lumber mills supporting logging operations in the surrounding area. The mills and woods industry have provided employment opportunities, timbers, ties, and lumber for industry and homesteader alike. Early hand loggers soon gave way to the large corporate mills in the last half of the 20th century. By the 1980s, most of the high-grade timber was overcut, and strong environmental movement was objecting to business as usual. In 2011, the Slocan mill was closed and demolished, ending over half a century of forest industry dominance. The characteristic surface enrichment of Slocan ore deposits, along with the ups and downs of metal prices, meant that the glory days of the 1890s never returned. Brief flurries during World War I and the high metal prices of the 1950s kept the miners' dream alive. Mines provided sporadic work, but the benefits often went to the developers and owners from away. In 1906, only 327 miners were at work in the entire district, a loss of 50% from only 5 years earlier. Oh, look, there's a diver there in search for the lost bullion of Slocan Lake. Oh yeah, there's a train that derailed into the lake. On December 22nd, 1903, a CPR boxcar carrying an essential 700 bullion bars from the trail smelter went off the transfer slip at Slocan and into the lake, carrying brakeman Edward Connolly to his death. Most of the bars were soon recovered. Subsequent salvage in 1929, the 60s and 70s probably recovered the rest. While most of the ingots salvaged were lead, popular lore continues to fuel the general belief that silver ingots or treasure are lost in Slocan Lake. The legend of the lost bullion lives on. The strategic location of Slocan at the junction of lake and river made it a transportation terminus enjoyed by successive mills. The aerial map shows log booms on the lake. River drives, flumes, peavies, barges, tugs, and booms were common to the Slocan logging industry. Historic Truman photo of the wharf at Slocan in 1897 shows an auction for city lots prominently advertised. You can see all the mining claims, guys. Lemon Creek. So this would be Slocan City here. And then you can see all the mining claims around here. In June 1892, Thomas Mulvey and Billy Clements recognized the junction of the lake with the river as an important terminus, established their camp there, and began the historic development of Slocan. By 1892, the SS Hunter was providing freight and passenger service on Slocan Lake. Rapid development occurred from 1896 to 1899. The backstory on Kootenay mining development was the rush to get ores to the smelter and supplies to the mines. The CPR line up the valley, the wharf, the slip-on, the lake at Main Street were all constructed in the 1890s in an effort to get Slocan ores to the smelter and trail. The photo shows the CPR steamer, the SS Slocan, launched in 1897 at the wharf. Development was sporadic and dependent on silver prices. The best years ended with World War I. Thereafter, producing mines became rare and development of money for prospects was seldom forthcoming. British mining engineer John Ashcroft toured the Slocan mines in 1908 to renew attention to the mining camps. He is shown with his party after returning from underground in a working Slocan mine. Rough times, guys. That's the Main Street, guys. Looking down Main Street from the wharf in 1897, final stages of rail construction showed the CPR track approaching Slocan Lake. The large sign by the tower advertises the Queen's birthday festivities. The silver mines were open and the pack trains were leaving daily. On Main Street, hotels, stores, and other businesses were being erected at record-breaking paces. At the end of Main, half a dozen boats loaded or unloaded daily at the crowded slip. So this is Slocan, guys. This is what would have happened here back in the day. Would have had trains coming and going. You can kind of see the old remnants of it. It's really flat and kind of laid out perfectly for trains. But it was the CPR hauling material and supplies into the Slocan for the miners and then hauling the ore out. Because like I said, you got to smelt this ore, right? Like it's fine and dandy to have a big silver deposit. But if you can't do anything with it, as in smelt it and treat it and get what you need to get done, then it doesn't really do anything other than just sit in the ground and doesn't become a viable resource that you can sell. Whereas once you get a smelter in place, which would have been the trail smelter for here, or like I said, some of the ore was shipped to the Revelstoke smelter. Once you get a smelter in place, then you can actually start, processing the ore, because otherwise you'll just be stockpiling, guys. You'll have a huge stockpile of ore and nowhere to actually put the ore or do anything with it, right? So the smelter is critical, but just as critical is the transportation, which is what this area served as. This hub right along the beach here, this would have served as the transportation hub. So you would have had stern wheelers, tugs hauling log booms. You would have gone up and down the lake. And then as we continue on the whole highway, which kind of replaced all of this, we'll stop in Silverton, which has mining claims around it. We'll stop at New Denver, which is another terminus for the Nakusp and Slocan Railway. And ultimately the goal is to get either to Silverton near Idaho Peak, Idaho Mountain, or even further into the Slocan, into Sandon, which is the ghost town or the ghost city of the Slocan. And that's where everything was happening, guys. That's where all the big silver producing mines were, the Payne mine, a whole bunch of different ones. And even all along that valley, the two valleys, like where the railways go through, there's ore to be found, super rich, high grade silver ore, as well as lead and zinc properties as well. Some big lead and zinc properties. But this is Slocan Lake, guys. Beautiful watercolor, beautiful mountains. It's absolutely gorgeous. And then this is the landing, guys. This was the source of all the transportation and mining in this region. So that road we just took, that would have been the Kootenay-Columbia Railway. That would have taken you up to here, and then you would have transferred into Silverton or New Denver, which then you would have taken another train to get to the Slocan. And that's kind of basically the gist of this area. It's just at the boat launch. It's still being used for what it would have been used for 100 years ago, or a little under 100 years ago, which was transportation on the water. So yeah, if you like this kind of content, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to get notified. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. Anyways, Sasquatch Prospector out.